This is Duke University.
I'm here to talk to you about the expansion of DNA databases to include arrestees, which are part of CODIS, the Combined DNA Index System. CODIS was launched in 1998 as a federal DNA database for convicted offenders. When DNA is analyzed from a crime scene, the resulting profile can be compared against the profiles in CODIS for any matches. It is up to each state to decide who to include in a database: felony offenders only, juvenile offenders, misdemeanants, etc. In recent years, states have also begun collecting from individuals arrested primarily for suspicion of felony offenses. As of June 2010, 23 states have now passed legislation to collect DNA from arrestees, and 17 more states have initiated legislation. The CODIS Enhanced DNA Collection Act of 2010 has been passed by the U.S. House of Representatives and is being considered in the U.S. Senate. The act provides financial incentives for states that collect DNA from arrestees. In addition, the act requires that states automatically expunge DNA samples and profiles if an arrestee is not convicted or if a conviction is overturned. The General Assembly of North Carolina is voting on legislation to collect DNA from arrestees. The act will mandate DNA collection from individuals collected for murder, sexual assault, burglary, stalking, and other crimes, as well as conspiracy to commit these crimes. The DNA profile of the arrestee will be deposited in CODIS to compare against past crimes and for comparison in the future to crimes analyzed down the road. If an arrested person is not convicted or found innocent, he or she will need to obtain an order to have his or her sample destroyed and the profile removed from the database. There are two types of samples typed by DNA laboratories, and hence two types of backlogs. First, the DNA samples from crime scenes and evidence such as rape kits, and second, the DNA samples from offenders that are included in CODIS. Some of the states that have adopted arrestee DNA collection may have been motivated by federal grant programs that offer additional funding to laboratories that have a backlog of DNA samples. Additionally, CODIS law, or CODIS bill, which passed in the U.S. House of Representatives in May 2010, further incentivized states to collect DNA from arrestees. Since laboratories are rewarded for having backlogs, states benefit from expanding their databases. Whether intended or not, the result of the federal programs to reduce the backlogs have been the prolonged backlog of evidence from crime scenes, including rape kits. Legislation to collect DNA from arrestees has been a boon to the laboratories that are eligible for particular grants, the state legislators who are eligible for additional funds, and the companies that provide testing or equipment and supplies for DNA testing. But this promotion of processing offender DNA samples over DNA evidence means that the backlog of rape kits that plagues DNA labs across the country may continue or even worsen. What we would like to see is that samples from evidence get prioritized above the samples coming from offenders, because there's not yet evidence that there's not yet evidence that the expansion of database to include arrestees is going to lead to more convictions. And at the same time, the rape kits are sitting on the shelf unprocessed.